Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of MAGA Headline News. Tonight, I just have a quick little story for you guys. Has to do with a True Social Trump put out. And, it's important for us to pay attention to what Trump is putting out on True Social and any of his social media accounts. It used to be that we had the backdoor 17 communications. You guys know what I'm talking about, and we don't necessarily have those drops anymore. We do have timestamp communications with that and um, other ways where they are showing us how future proves past. But we also don't get to hear from President Trump like we used to in those backdoor communications. But what we do have are his true social posts. And if you followed President Trump for a long time, as I have, I actually and I could share this one day. I actually was looking for President Trump to run for president back in 2012, and I could even show some of the Photoshop pictures that I would make, and post them on social media back then because I had heard an interview he did with Bill O'Reilly a long time ago, and I said, "Oh my God, this guy really could do it. This guy got the ideas and he's got the balls." Um, but yeah, if you pay attention to his social media posts, what he writes, that's what's on his mind when he's sitting down, when he's laying in bed at night, scrolling or posting things. That's what's on his mind. And you got to think he's planting seeds for things. He's throwing feelers out there. He's telling you what he's thinking in his own way. And you know, the other day we talked about the suspension of habeas corpus as one of his tools to clean this country up. Um, but there are numerous other tools that he has, and I do believe that things are getting that serious. Okay, we we have a Democrat Party that is just not letting up. We have a news media that is just not letting up. It is very apparent that these people have committed a lot of crimes, and it looks to me like it's do or die for them. They really don't have a choice but to stop because they need to grab at every straw they can to take President Trump down or to create as much destabilization, violence, whatever they could in this country to take the spotlight off of them. Now, um, Trump put out this today earlier. It says this was on True Social. Okay. Can it be so that judges aren't allowing the USA to deport criminals, including murderers, out of our country and back to where they came from? If this is so, our country as we know it is finished. Americans will have to get used to a very different crime filled life. This is not what our founders had in mind. And it's absolutely not. And you have to really take a step back and you got to really go up and above and look at the 40,000-foot view of this. Okay. We are living in a time where people don't seem to respect the system anymore. Nobody's scared to challenge the police as far as they could challenge them. Nobody's scared to break the laws anymore. They're being shown time after time that the liberal judges and the systems and the Soros prosecutors and district attorneys, the mayors, whoever that are installed all over our country because we are, with all of them being there in their elected positions, a lot of them, even though they're not elected properly, they're installed with a rigged elections. These people are in control of many areas of our country and they're committing crimes and they're being exposed right in our faces and they really don't care. They are doing their best to get us fighting with each other and they're doing their best to destabilize everything. Now, I'm in my 40s and growing up, I never would have thought to see American judges and American politicians act this way. I never would have thought I would see the day where American judges are in a habit at this point of covering up and hiding illegal aliens that are known terrorists, known murderers, known rapists, known child SA. I mean, they are at the point where they are basically willing to die on the hill for this stuff. Why? We really have to ask ourselves why, because this is something that is, unexplainable. They can't defend the undefendable. This is something that is outrageously mind-blowing. I don't know how else to describe this, but the things we are seeing out of the left where they don't even care about American citizens. They don't care about the crime that's being done to us. They don't care about the murders, the torture, the things we're hearing every day in the news. It are just things that we never saw happen, and they're shocking to us, and a lot of people are, almost choosing to ignore it because, we don't even know what to do. Some of us, it's so new to us. People that live in third world countries, they're used to this stuff. Not that they should be, it's horrible, but this stuff, they grew up dealing with this type of stuff. Some countries are, they function under, just war going on right in their cities, and they still are able to function because they're used to it. Americans, we've had it easy. And not to say that that's a bad thing. If you take the emotion out of it, it is a bad thing because we have no experience dealing with any of this. We are basically under a partial Marxist occupation with all of these governors, mayors, district attorneys, prosecutors, all installed by these left wing Soros organizations. And they have one goal in mind, one goal, and that is to destabilize America. And the more you destabilize, the more you create conflict and fighting with one another, the better chance they have to commit their crimes and to get away with everything. Then they have the problem reaction solution. So, all these school, shootings are going on. Okay. We need to do this. Okay. So what they do is they focus in on the problem or they create the problem. Everybody reacts. They get their, mainstream media reacts. Everybody's reacting, and then they offer the solution. But the solution is always something that's going to take your rights away. And at this point, we've seen it so much that it's very obvious. All the propaganda is very obvious, but you still have such a large percent of the country that is not capable. These Democrat voters, they are very, I hate to say this, okay, but it really is the truth. You got to take the emotion out of it. They're the lowest IQ people, citizens we have in the country, lowest functioning. And they like to say that, oh, we're not educated. Okay. There's a big difference between being educated and being smart or wise. Um, Book smart is book smart. So you can learn, you can copy things out of a book. Critically thinking is something that they are not capable of doing. Common sense are things that they are not capable of doing. And I've said this story before. When we were growing up, I had a good friend in high school, and he had this girlfriend who was, they were together for years, but she was the class president. She was, top of the class, straight A's, got accepted into one of these liberal colleges and everything else. But this girl couldn't get from point A to point B. She couldn't even remember directions in her own city. Can't understand how things function, just completely dumb as a box of rocks. Okay. So when they say we're not educated, fine. We're not, some people are not educated, but you don't have to be educated to have common sense. And a lot of these voters are very low IQ. And most of these liberals, these Democrat voters, they're educated in liberal arts or climate change. They have master's degrees in climate change and liberal arts and trans this. This is the things that they're educated in. There's nothing that has to do with real life. So we understand a lot of what they don't. So what President Trump is putting out today, and he's saying this because I believe he's throwing feelers out for what does he need to do to clean this up. He knows that if he was to leave office without completely obliterating the deep state and the Democrats as we know them, and when I mean obliterate, it's not just going to war with people that haven't committed crimes. I mean, these people are guilty of just about everything you could imagine. I'll do other episodes on the things they're up to as far as grant money and everything. I'll explain all of this to you guys, okay? But as far as this is concerned, we're living in basically a partial Marxist occupation. And if you have judges that are doing this, all it does is add to the destabilization. It sends the message to anybody that wants to commit crimes to keep doing it because you're not going to get in trouble. It keeps sending the message to these Democrat voters that subconsciously almost that we're doing something wrong by taking these people out of our country. In my last video, I mentioned that 12 million people came here through Ellis Island legally from 1892 to 1954, I believe. I may have the dates off by a year or so. Okay. 12 million people in our biggest immigration operation ever in America. It was like 60 something years. Now think about this. Joe Biden let in over 20 million people in a matter of 4 years. Where does that leave us? We have really big problems. The strain on our systems, our services alone, we can't afford it. We can't afford the crime. We can't afford the impact that it has on our culture. And we need to stop letting people, especially like the left, deny that Americans have our own culture. They want to keep dividing us by race, by ethnicity, by whatever they could divide us by. We are Americans and we need to stick together as Americans if we're going to survive. Okay. So, what is Trump saying here? I believe he's throwing feelers out for uh to throw them out there about the Insurection Act because I think that's what he needs to do eventually. I think that, it may not be going that extreme at first. These could be feelers to see if we're going to start impeaching these judges because, put the fear of God into them, start arresting these judges. And if that stuff doesn't work, I believe that President Trump has the right to use the Insurection Act. We have so many people in our government that are trying to do this country harm. We have so many people in the media that are deliberately cooperating with the Democrats while the Democrats are cooperating with people that are interested in taking America down for a global communist government. So they are conspiring. This is an insurrection. Okay. You don't let this many people into the country. You don't do the things you're doing for nothing. And if we cannot stop these judges, if we cannot stop these politicians, if we cannot stop the lies and the brainwashing of America, I mean, this is really what's happening. We could prove President Trump can prove that the media is directly lying to the American people, and these are not point of view lies. These are not twist the truth lies. They're directly lying. So with them spying on his campaign, rigging the election. I mean, this all goes into if you want to think about how a RICO Act is, okay, where it's everybody all conspiring into one organization for this goal, to the goal of taking down America. So I believe this type of a truth, he's throwing the feelers out there to see what people say, to see, do people agree with him? Is he going to get 10,000 comments, 30,000, a million comments saying, listen, we don't care. Go for it. It would probably, I can imagine the amount of stress on his shoulders to think, wow, do I have to actually invoke the Insurrection Act and put the whole country on lockdown? Well, I'll tell you this, and I say it all the time. I have more trust in President Trump having emergency powers than I do with the Democrats and deep state continuing to be a drag and a just basically the way they are trying to take our country apart. More and more crime means more and more destabilization. It will hurt our economy. It hurts our people. It hurts everything about us. So yes, my message to President Trump would be do whatever you got to do. I trust you a lot more with the emergency powers than I would the deep state with the powers they take without asking or doing anything legal, because they just do whatever they want. It has to be stopped. This country has to be cleaned up because we are in for a rough next few years. And I'm going to be covering this um, probably in the next week or so. I want people to understand the real problem that we really have with China. I want people to understand what's really going on. And I'll just leave you with this one, little bit of information about this. Okay. If we can't manufacture things in our own country, how do we survive? Even if we are much more powerful militarily than China, what happens if they decide to cut us off? Or somebody decides to poison our antibiotics or our medicine. They have too much power over us, and things are heating up way too much for us to not be manufacturing in our own country. So we're going to get into the tariffs on this channel. We're going to get into all of that so that people start to understand the actual threat that the Chinese Communist Party present to America. So, with that, guys, I just wanted to bring out that truth that Trump put out tonight and do a little bit of explaining on my feelings, my thoughts on why some of these truths come out, and maybe what President Trump is thinking when he puts these out. But that's about it. I will see you guys tomorrow with another report. And my name is Mike, and that has been MAGA Headline News for tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, good night, guys.